As the gathering of individuals here testifies, Corinne's loss has been felt by many, both in this community and around the world. We are here to create and hold space together, to remember as a community Corinne's life and to honor her connection to this place, but also these people, you, her people, and the impact she had on so many, near and far. Grief can be piercingly particular because it shapes itself to the details of our lives. Our griefs reflect the particular interactions, connections, relationships, and journeys we have and we have had. And because of these particularities, grief can leave us feeling alone and isolated. And yet, as you know, one of Corinne's many gifts was that of hospitality, for seeking out others and welcoming them in, for helping to create community and helping others feel like they are known and cared for. For we are not alone. We are here this afternoon together to remember and to celebrate. You will hear testimonies to Corinne's care, to her many gifts, her scholarship, her mentorship, her good cheer. And these stories and reflections offered by those speaking from different moments in her life are just a small glimpse into the glorious tapestry of the connection Corinne has woven. And I hope that you, both at today's reception and continuing in the days, share your stories of Corinne. For we gather here as a testament to love, the love that Corinne brought into this world, and the love that we all had for Corinne, and the ways that that love continues to live on in our lives. And so as we come to this time, I offer you this blessing for the brokenhearted by Jan Richardson. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have had this pain than to have done without this love. Perhaps for now it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom. So welcome, friends. Thank you for taking this time to enact this small act of remembrance, to show your love for each other and for Corinne. Welcome.
Hello. In 1993, I wrote in the first of many recommendations for Corinne. Corinne is precisely the kind of student who should be encouraged to pursue graduate study and to enter the professoriate. I'm convinced we'll see her name associated with many honors and awards throughout her professional life. So it may come as a surprise that academic success was not a foregone conclusion. In Switzerland, Corinne was bored in school and shunted into a secretarial track. With little to lose, she went off to discover the world, finding it in New York City ultimately after a brief interlude as an au pair in Vancouver. I met Corinne in New York in the fall of 1991, 30 years ago, at the corner of 68th and Lex, in a windowless classroom, the 20-plus students facing me, were there to learn ancient Greek. Fewer than half would complete the 2 semesters required to earn any credit for their introductory experience. Corinne sat in the center of the first row, an enthusiastic, if not entirely confident, sophomore. By the end of that year, with no previous experience, she would earn the only A+ in that class and go on to maintain that grade in Greek 102. She seemed at times unable to do anything wrong. Like the majority of the 22,000 students at Hunter, a senior college of the City University of New York, Corinne was a 27-year-old woman who'd come to college on her own terms. As an international student, her primary tongue, French, was one of the 60 non-English languages spoken by Hunter's student population. Like many of the others, she worked to pay for her education. In 1991, she came to class in her uniform as a bicycle courier for the Swiss mission to the UN. Unlike many of her fellow students, however, Corinne graduated in 4 years. By then, she'd taken other courses with me, garnering the highest grade in each. The first was Homer and Virgil in translation, where her ability to analyze literature rivaled her facility for language. Her paper on Odyssey Book 8 would become the inspiration for her Odysseus and the Phaeacians, published in 9 studies on Homer in 1999. In her junior year, she took my ancient novel in translation course and focused on strong women, eros, and concepts of heroism. In her senior year, she enrolled in Maps in History, Art, and Literature, a class exclusive to the Thomas Hunter Honors students that I co-designed and taught with a noted cartographer. One project involved creating a map to illustrate a literary work without one. Corinne mapped Lucian's inimitable true story, a witty melding of her cartographic, classical, and literary interests. When she left Hunter in 1994, Corinne had learned and had begun mastering both classical languages. A testament to her nascent teaching skills, she had substituted as an undergraduate in a Latin class for Jennifer Roberts at City College. She had won our department's coveted Adelaide Hahn Prize in Greek and Latin. She had majored not only in classics, but in philosophy and the Thomas Hunter Honors Program, which accepts only 3% of Hunter students. Before Harvard swept her off her feet, Corinne graduated Phi Beta Kappa and Summa Cum Laude, which surprised no one except Corinne. A modest, increasingly elegant and assured woman, she left Hunter with lifelong friends, Alison Merrick, Solu Asirvatham, my colleague, Professor Ronnie Ancona, and myself. That Corinne was there for me after my breast cancer surgeries in the spring of 1994 speaks to her loyalty and concern. That a decade later, she dedicated her first book to me was the most tender and unexpected gift of my teaching career. The more Corinne became part of my life with my visits to Cambridge, the more she became part of my husband Jordan's life. We stayed with her in New Haven and San Antonio. She stayed with us in New York, Amsterdam, and her new home in Victoria, British Columbia, right across the strait from Vancouver. We planned but never made it to Lausanne to visit her beloved family and friends. When we heard the news we'd feared for years, Jordan put our sense of loss into words. Corinne, he said, had all the qualities we would have loved in a daughter. She was gentle, but tough, disciplined, and capable. She took care of herself without burdening others. She always looked forward, relished discovering new places with dear friends, but also liked where she was. She saw the best in people, happily accepting displays of affection, and enjoyed teasing and sharing space and time. yet she was also serious, deeply private, and possessed a serenity that perhaps even she wasn't conscious of. She was our ray of sanity, our original executor, and beneficiary, our hope for the future. Her wry humor still makes us smile. While she was at Harvard, we told her that we considered her the third of our surrogate children, the other two being the founders of the New York City-based Bindlestiff Family Circus, for whom Jordan and I had just posed in the Ur photograph. They're still very much in existence, with Jordan being Gomez and me being Fabulosa. What was Corinne's response to this compliment? She didn't bat an eye. Well, she said, I guess I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm the only one who didn't join the circus. We want to thank Trinity University and the many loving organizers of this event for bringing us all together to celebrate Corinne, Undine, Pache, and to you, Bright Spirit. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I don't know if she saw herself this way, but Corinne had a great talent for making difficult things seem doable and for making you feel like you could do them too. From the beginning of my time in graduate school, she was one of those advanced students you looked up to and admired. Knowledgeable, gracious, sophisticated. I hoped to be all of these things one day myself, and of course was never quite sure whether I'd made it or not. That's the way graduate school is. None of us are ever as assured as we might seem to others, and Corinne would have been the first person to insist, I know, that she didn't have any magic answers. But Corinne was someone who inspired confidence in you. Her warm, cheerful smile made you feel welcome and accepted. You were always glad to see her at a party because you knew that there was someone there you could enjoy talking to, someone who would make you feel like you belonged. When about halfway through my time in graduate school, she got her first job, it all seemed very fitting, and I remember how happy I was, and others were too, to see her success. And at that point, I might have thought our paths had done crossing, and that I would have been left with fond memories of the times we had spent together in graduate school, along with a wish that I'd gotten to know her better. And that wish came true, I guess. I mean, I remember being thrilled to know that Corinne would attend my job talk at what turned out to be my first job, and at the dinner afterwards. And anyone here who has ever applied for an academic job or loves and knows other people who have, you know how terrifying those events can be. Knowing that Corinne was there, smiling warmly and encouragingly, made it so much easier to make my own way through a challenging day. And a challenging 6 years. We were colleagues for 6 years together, regularly teaching together in directed studies at Yale and socializing frequently as well. I will always fondly remember the evenings in the lovely garden of her apartment in New Haven, sometimes little dinners for 4 or 6 with fondue or grilled shrimp or something else elegant and delicious, sometimes meeting friends of hers from near and far, sometimes large parties. Those were important but challenging years for me, for Corinne, for all of us. And Corinne's warmth, her kindness, and her ability to recognize the absurdities of situations did a lot to make those years not only bearable, but pleasurable and memorable as well. And then at around the same time, it was decided that both of our paths would diverge again, and Corinne and I moved on to new jobs, hers here at Trinity, mine in South Carolina. It was easy to see how much Corinne loved her time here in her new life in San Antonio. Her department, her students, the city, everything it had to offer. You could just see from when she first moved here how happy she was here from the beginning. And she often spoke of how relaxed and happy she felt here, how at home she was, and it showed. We continued to see each other regularly, frequently exchanging visits at Thanksgiving, including just last Thanksgiving in Columbia, along with Catherine and Paul, who are here today. We also saw each other regularly in other venues, and our friendship continued to grow and develop over the years. I know that many people can speak about Corinne's love of travel, and many of us have fond memories of trips taken with Corinne to locations Europe and North America. I have particularly fond memories of a trip we took to that most exotic of destinations, Grand Rapids, Michigan, for the Classical Association of the Middle West and South, or CAMWS. Corinne had the curiosity, the openness, the sense of adventure to get as much fun out of Grand Rapids as many people would out of a much more glamorous destination. I think if you know Corinne, you'll know that. We had a fantastic time there. We toured the Gerald Ford Presidential Library. We ate at various gastropubs of the city and just had a wonderful time. That was the thing about Corinne. She could make the everyday into an adventure you wanted to join her on, and an adventure she was always happy to share with you. It's been hard over the past few years knowing that Corinne was struggling with her illness. And being the person that she was, she did her best to face that situation honestly and to be direct to the people in her life about what the future held, but not to let those realities prevent her from getting the most of the time she did have, traveling and spending time with friends. It's not easy to accept that our paths will no longer be crossing. We had so much more to say to each other, and I had so much more to learn from her and about her. Her story should not be over, and I know I'm not the only one here who wishes that we could share another glass of wine in some lovely garden or a terrace somewhere and get caught up on all the latest adventures. Thank you.
I was lucky enough to know Corinne as a professor, dissertation advisor, mentor, and friend. We often joked that she was my Doktormutter, and she truly was an academic parent to me. I first met her almost 20 years ago when I began my PhD at Yale. She taught me Sophocles and directed research in the Greek novel. Her approaches in research have permeated my own. My Miss students always learn the risks and delights of nympholepsy and that babies can be heroes too. Since my dissertation included Greek and Latin, Corinne was one of my two advisors alongside Kirk Freudenberg, both of whom read countless drafts, especially, to be honest, a flurry right at the end. Corinne was always ready with sage advice about writing, ready to collaborate in academic adventures and panels, and to give me generous and thoughtful suggestions about my career. But throughout this, she was more than just an intellectual lodestar. I recall exuberant dinner parties featuring raclette at her infamous apartment on Court Street in New Haven, where I also had the pleasure of watching her beloved cat Milos and his companion Selma. One of my fondest memories of Corinne is a trip that we took when actually also at a meeting of the Classical Association of the Middle, West, and South, actually this time in Tucson, Arizona. This would have been before I finished my degree back in 2008, a long time ago now it seems. We took off from the conference for a quest into the desert in search of the elusive organ pipe cactus. Although we were the only car for miles around, it was not a lonely trip. As always, our time together was punctuated by loud laughter and enthusiastic conversation. It was so like her to seek out the cactus. Not only did she love the Southwest, she was so profoundly curious about all life had to offer. I was also fortunate to see her often once I moved to DC because she was often in town at the Center for Hellenic Studies. And we shared many unforgettable dinners with Madeline, our mutual friend, who she introduced me to, who's also here today. Corinne was a continual font of hot tips on things to read or watch, be it Alice Oswald's Memorial, which we'll hear from soon, or the Netflix show Casa de las Flores. She taught me how to be a scholar, but more importantly, she taught me how to be an academic as a person, to focus on the work, to take it seriously, with enthusiasm, rigor, and positivity, while making it part of a full and joyful life. I would have wanted to give a speech like this with her in the audience at a conference for her retirement or publish it in a Festschrift, and it is truly tragic that the fates had it otherwise. But at least I can say that my life and the lives of her other students and friends are richer because of her, and I can only hope to reflect a portion of her optimism, kindness, and warmth. May her kleos be ever aftheton. May her immortal fame continue on.
Good to see so many people here. Well, as a public speaker, it's terrifying, but as a friend, it's heartwarming. And I'll say again what everybody's been saying so far. It's astonishing how many lives Corinne touched, how many parts she played in so many communities. She was a dedicated and compassionate teacher, running a reading group, a continuation of a class during COVID times, just for the students who showed up and wanted to have a community during that hard time. She was an effective and enthusiastic member of the political community, showing up and working hard for social justice causes, a wide array of social justice causes. She was an enthusiastic traveler, a foodie, an intrepid musician, a beloved friend, and she was a crazy cat lady. And that's what I'm here to talk about. It became clear to me that we were kindred spirits in this regard one day, and this is sad. When her beloved Milosh, the sort of star of the last speech, died, and I met Corinne for lunch that day in the Skyline room, the old Skyline room, and she came in and her hair was awry and she was moving quickly and she couldn't focus her eyes, and she said, "My beloved Milosh died and I don't know what to do with myself. I think I'm going crazy." And I told her, and I'll tell you, that the Humane Society on Fredericksburg Road, just north of 410, has a little room in the cat adoption area where you can sit with kittens. And I don't know if she finished the workday. I don't know if she obeyed the speed limits, but she got herself up to the cat adoption room at the Humane Society on Fredericksburg, north of 410, as quickly as she can, not to adopt any cats, but because she was in need of the sort of cuddles that are that include 10 little claws digging into your flesh. Yeah? Now, some of you know what I'm saying. Yeah? So she certainly was not there to adopt anybody. She was still in mourning. And you all think you know what's coming next, right? Sort of like this narrative anticipation, and she adopted somebody. But no, you're underestimating her if that's the way you're going to narratively complete the story in your head. She adopted 2 people, right? She came back with 2 kittens in this time of mourning when she wasn't going to be adopting anybody. She saw first her beloved Oliver with his golden fur shining like the sun or shining like Meloche, you know? And she was blinded by the beauty, the spectacular beauty of his golden fur. And so, of course, his fate, his happy fate was sealed at that moment. And then, thank goodness, walking out of the cat adoption center at the Humane Society on Fredericksburg Road, just walking out, having sort of decided upon her Oliver, her eyes fell upon a floppy white and gold kitty. And in that moment of where their glances met, in that moment where the glances met, her glance contained a vow to love him forever. Yeah. And so there they were. Corinne found peace, and Meloche's spirit found rest as she took these 2 sweet, beloved kittens into her house because, as you've reminded us, Chaplain Alex, nothing that is truly loved ever truly dies. The 3-way love fest turned into a 4-way love fest when a little gray kitten made the best decision of its life and decided to follow her home one day. And go for the narrative completion on that one and you'll be right. She got her beloved Joe, who is now my beloved Joe, and my beloved Lenny, and Lisa and Patrick's beloved, spoiled, mischievous, clever Oliver, who knows how to go up and down stairs. They all do. They've all learned how to go up and down stairs. I've come to think lately that death is a narrow view of things, that our life energies continue on if we invest in the things that we love. Love isn't an emotion that stops when a person's brain activity stops. It's an energy that confers value onto things, and that value stays and continues to light up the world like an orange kitten. It's a profound source of consolation to be able to nurture that love. Corinne loved many things and many people. She loved her friends and family, her academic work, her pretty house, her music, her books, her garden, her travels. There are plenty of things that we can nurture on behalf of Corinne. My instructions for this speech, which was only supposed to last a few minutes, was to say one thing, not everything, and I choose to say that Corinne loved cats. And if you see her in a dream, or in the guise of these birds that seem to haunt the places where we notice her. We've been noticing these birds. If you see her, please tell her that her cats are capable of far more mischief than she'd let me to suspect when I agreed to take them on, particularly Lenny and Joe. And that her love is a legacy, and that that legacy lives on. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. According to my program, I'm Bill Sullivan. My wife Barbara and I have been friends of Corinne's for the last 12 years. Je voudrais commencer par souhaiter la bienvenue à Mireille et Philippe qui nous rejoignent par Zoom. Vous voyez comme Corinne était aimée de tant d'amis et elle nous manquera tous. Elle m'a beaucoup aidé avec mon français, avec gentillesse et bienveillance, et elle m'encourageait toujours. C'était une amie merveilleuse et je chéris sa mémoire. So Barbara and I first met Corinne at a weekly reading group 12 years ago. I knew she was a classics professor, and I had been told that she was becoming a heavyweight in her field. Needless to say, I gave her a wide berth at the first few meetings, until I noticed the humility and the acuity of her comments and the kindness with which she listened to those of others. With her lovely accent, she was at ease in difficult English, Ulysses, complex French, Proust's Recherche, and no identifiable language at all, Finnegan's Wake. Then she laughed at one of my jokes, which is a response that I don't get all that often. Her lovely laugh, I was all in after that. If you're taking notes, that's book 3, line 373. This is when Athena's doing her usual thing of turning from mentor into a bird and flying away. In this case, she turns into an ossifrage. Sorry. Which is, what? And it kind of annoyed me. And then after a moment's reflection, I realized, wow, that's a great word, because it kind of reflects Telemachus's shock and surprise at this transformation that he saw in front of him. So that was the anecdote I told her about my response to the book. Without saying a word, she pushed me electronically her review of the Wilson translation, in which, in far better English than mine, she had described having essentially the identical reaction. Little moments of nerdy bonding go a long way. As the years passed, we three shared birthdays, Thanksgivings, Sunday afternoon in the swimming pool. Corinne would arrive with Swiss precision and reliability at 3 p.m. The three of us shared hikes and bikes and paddle boarding. Inks Lake, Texas, Pearl Lake, Colorado. Corinne thought they were beautiful, which I took as high praise coming from a Swiss who are not unfamiliar with beautiful lakes. One time she got downwind paddleboarding and she faced a difficult and turbulent return. We're on the shore. "Don't straddle the board," to which she shouted back, "Don't paddle the board?" That was a Finnegan's Wake moment too. We laughed about it later. It was our privilege to share her journey through her illness. She knew her prognosis, but lived her days with enthusiasm and gratitude. She did so well for so long. We shared moments of what I would call realism, fear, doubt, but never despair or depression. We went to MD Anderson early on to speak with the oncologist there, who was great. He was professional, punctual, knowledgeable, caring, and to this day I cannot remember the guy's name because of his uncanny resemblance to Leslie Nielsen's doctor character in the movie Airplane. Whenever Corinne needed to bounce an idea off him or get some extra advice, she would just tell me, "I'm going to call Leslie." Memories of picnics together in Veterans Park across the street from the Tobin Center, sharing a snack and speaking French. We spoke a lot of French. She was gently encouraging to me and seemed to tolerate my butchery of her mother tongue, assuring me that I was making myself understood and that I was good to go. Her strongest correction, either syntactical or grammatical, was to say, "We don't say that in my family." Sometimes it would be, "We don't say that in Switzerland." In emergencies, it would be, "We don't say that anywhere in the French-speaking world." Toward the end, I learned she was proud of my French. The day arrived where I needed to make the call to Corinne's mom, Mireille, and her brother, Philippe, and I was able to do that in French. And it's one of the greatest blessings of my life to be able to partly repay my debt to Corinne that way. So back to the Tobin Center, we would play a game at the concerts in the lobby, counting the people each of us knew to say hello to. She won every time. And her attractiveness was obvious. It wasn't just a wave and a nod, it was genuine enthusiasm and love with which people would greet her. Corinne, as I look at this assembled group of your friends today, I would say, you win again.
Like when a man adds salt of the road into a green blackened water, he vanishes, then resurfaces, with his thoughts the other way up, and his hands full of oysters.
Like when a man adds a boat into green blackened water, he vanishes, then surfaces, with his thoughts the other way up, and his hands full of oysters.
Like snow falling, like snow when the wind winds shake the clouds into pieces like flowers and stars, hurrying down to put a stop to the earth at every flow.
Like that slow motion moment when a woman waves the wool, her poor old spider hands work all night spinning a living for her children, and then she stops. She soothes the scales to a standstill.
Like leaves who could write a history of leaves, the wind blows their ghosts to the ground, and the spring breathes new life into the wounds. Thousands of names, thousands of leaves. But this, dead bodies are their lineage, which matters no more than the leaves.
Like chaff flying everywhere at threshing time, the winnowers waft their fans and the wind does its work, and a goddess is there, picking the grain from its husk, while a fine white dust covers everything.
Like thousands of warbirds live in the Macedonian air, great gatherings of geese and cranes, and long-necked swans flaring and settling in those fields where the rain runs down to the Keister, continually shuffling and lifting, and loving the sound of their wings. They shriek as they land, like a huge bird fair, a valley full of voices.
Like tribes of summer bees coming up from the underworld out of a crack in a rock, a billion factory women flying to their flower work, being born and reborn and shimmering over fields.
Like when God throws a star and everyone looks up to see the whip of sparks, and then it's gone.
Like when God throws a star and everyone looks up to see that whip of sparks, and then it's gone.
I'm up here with a pen and a book. Corinne spoke often of the family that we choose, in addition to the family we're born into. Many here know the pleasures of being her chosen family. What continues to connect us, in addition to our love for her, is how Corinne brought out the best in us. Through being open to sparks of joy, and she loved Marie Kondo, in persons, animals, flowering plants, a bowl of noodles or a bowl of ice cream, but why not both? 10-minute naps on her office floor behind the desk so no one could see. Workouts and walks, meditation and music, a deluxe exclusive spa weekend with Lisa, as well as TV night with Tom. She inspires us to grasp joy wherever we can. Because Catherine, why not? Which is not to say that Corinne couldn't be critical. Tom Jenkins penned the following reminiscence. A few years ago, I was assigned to review the musical Phantom of the Opera. To my surprise, Corinne hadn't seen it, and I was happy to have her join me. As the first half plodded along with all of its bombast, heavy-handed ballads, and Gothic melodrama, I knew I had made a terrible mistake and steeled myself at intermission for Corinne's withering criticism. And I got it. As soon as the curtain went down, she turned to me and asked, "Why do people like this musical? The Phantom is such a terrible teacher." I have often thought about that moment, how I perceived one thing and Corinne quite another. And of course, what Corinne saw was more perceptive than what a million critics, myself included, had written about the show. It also opened a window into what was truly important to Corinne, teaching and compassion and empathy. One of the many joys of Corinne's company were those moments in which she permitted you to see the world through her eyes, and it was a world viewed with ferocious intelligence and an appreciation for kindness in art and in life. I can echo. Corinne's ability to recognize what mattered, what was meaningful, and to celebrate and share it was one of her most extraordinary qualities, and one reason why you felt so special when she let you into her life. Our own meet cute story was a source of teasing and contention. Corinne claimed that she and I met during grad school. Her first-year roommate, also fresh out of Hunter College, was starting a PhD in my department, and so, Corinne's story goes, I invited them both to dinner. Corinne claimed I made a big impression on her. I have absolutely no memory of this dinner. When we met again at Yale, fixed up by a colleague, it was Corinne's turn to make an impression on me, and the beginning of a conversation that ran nonstop for almost 18 years. For two people committed to glean not only sense, but sensibility out of ancient poetry and prose texts, Corinne and I forged a connection for which there isn't really any good language. Before her first surgery, she went shopping for nice pajamas. I happened to text while she was on this expedition, and only half-jokingly worried that I might have to play the role of lesbian domestic partner to be able to stay with her in the hospital. Not missing a beat, she texted back, "Matching pajamas," which she bought. Another time, as I was telling her about my dinner with Courtney and a movie with Tanya, she demanded, "Who are these people? Why are you spending so much time with them?" "Well," said I, "you do know I see other people. We have a long-distance relationship." "But why," she asked, "when you have me?" Playful, but also real, although not romantic, we were a kind of couple. During her final hospital stay, after one too many nurses remarked, "Oh, so you're just a friend," we referred to me variously as cousin, sister, healthcare agent. Eventually, I just said, "I'm her person." Our couple's language of love included children, cats, walks, taking photos, trips taken together, trips fantasized, trips actively being planned. For Corinne, planning and anticipating a trip was almost as pleasurable as being underway. Martha's Vineyard, Hilton Head, the best West Texas road trip ever. New Orleans, short stays in New York, crashing at one friend or another's. Cambridge, where we visited old stomping grounds we had in common, despite not having met in graduate school. South Carolina for Thanksgivings. Mexico City. And 2 weeks in Switzerland, where she shared with me her first family, mother, brother, niece, and nephew, and the places where she grew up. We hiked in the mountains, did yoga, took naps, watched fox kits in the evening light. Ours was the language of good food also. Wine, cheese, especially cheese. Ripe, runny, cheese that cannot be ignored cheese. But really, there was no bad cheese. One October, I met Corinne in Cambridge, and we drove out to the Cape for a long weekend. I packed sheets and towels for our off-season cottage, coffee, yogurt, super dark 92% cacao chocolate bars with no sugar, half a case of wine, and one magnificently robust cheese. We came back one evening from sharing our favorite kind of dinner out, all the appetizers on the menu, plus dessert, opened a bottle of Côte du Rhône, and one thing led to another, and eventually led to cheese. Bleary-eyed over coffee the next morning, I confessed, I think I went to bed with cheese on my chin. Corinne exclaimed, I think we went to bed with cheese everywhere. But our love language fundamentally was the language of books. We talked about books, through sharing books and authors with each other. When I turned her on to the guilty pleasure of the Modern Love podcast, she gifted me with Cheryl Strayed's Wild. After I brought a house gift of Louise Erdrich's The Round House, I found The Night Watchman beside my bed table the next time I visited. My best book gift to Corinne, Christmas 2016, Elena Ferrante, My Brilliant Friend, which then became our mutual nickname for each other, applied both when one of us had done something particularly clever and also when one of us had done something particularly boneheaded. That same Christmas, she gave me Let's Take the Long Way Home by Gail Caldwell. Anyone know this book? It's a memoir about friendship between two women, both writers. It's sad, she told me when I opened it, but beautiful. Corinne turned me on to Anne Carson's translations of Sappho and Sophocles, and Alice Oswald's memorial, of which she had organized a student performance here at Trinity, an idea that I then stole for a course that she and I originated together at Yale, and that I continue to teach. She intuited what I needed. I think a lot of us know that, understand, having been on the receiving end of that, often without me knowing myself. A really good novel, a sixth go at persuasion, a super clever British mystery, something set in Cambridge, something set in Mexico, something set in Greece. We exchanged poetry constantly, especially when focus was elusive and we needed more music with our words. Corinne loved to make plans. Part of her social genius was to bring together disparate members of her second family and make detailed plans for our delight. It was how she took care of the people she loved. I'm not alone in feeling that Corinne was attentive to what I said and what I didn't say. And I marvel at her capacity for empathy and understanding. When she started keeping a 5-year journal in 2017, she gave me one too. Her last entry for 2021 was start a new 5-year journal. Her first entry for January 1st, 2022, new 5-year diary, signaling hope, even in the face of hopelessness. During our last late night heart-to-heart, after she had decided to receive end-of-life care, she said to me, "It will be harder on you than on me." That night, in an epic conversation that took place between 2 and 3 in the morning, she related to me her after-death wishes, sparing me and her first family difficult decisions. "I've had a good life," she said. "No regrets." She told me that she wanted us to have a joyful gathering with, quote, "lots of funny photos," which you'll see at the reception, "and good stories," for which I thank my fellow speakers. She all but planned the reception we're about to enjoy. Lisa actually did the heavy lifting on that, but Corinne insisted there was enough money in her bank accounts to pay for everything. Corinne wanted us to find support and comfort with one another, and made plans to ensure that today and going forward, through the community and communities that she built, we would find, if not hope in the face of hopelessness, joy in the face of our sadness.
So I want to close today's ceremony by thanking all of you for joining us today to honor our exquisite and the too short life of our brilliant friend, Corinne Pache. So when I look out at all of your faces gathered here in San Antonio, and I think about all of you who are Zooming in from all over the world, I can only imagine how touched Corinne would be to be on the receiving end of such abundant attention. And because Corinne hated to be the center of attention, I can also imagine her gesturing that this was all too much, and knowing that we would carry on despite any protests that she would mount. But as we bring today's ceremony to a close, I want to express just really deep gratitude to Alex Cerna-Wallander, Nelda Cortels, Sarah Perales, and Tom Jenkins, who played such significant and elegant behind-the-scenes roles making today possible. Immediately following this memorial, please join us in Dickey Hall, which is Trinity's newest building and it's home to the humanities for this very promised reception. We're going to walk over together, so if you don't know where it is, feel free to join the parade. I'm just going to echo Catherine because we didn't coordinate our remarks, and I will say that Corinne left explicit instructions that this reception must be uplifting, joyous, filled with silly photographs and laughter. So you have your marching orders, and it's just our job to do it. During today's reception, all of you are invited to use some provided cards to share a note with Corinne's Swiss family, including her mother, Mireille, brother Philippe, nephew Brian, and niece Leah. You can feel free to write in English or in French, and remembrances can also be posted online at legacy.com if you don't want to do it today. Leah and I have had a very special week together, and she wants you to know that she would love to hear your stories and memories at today's memorial. But it has been such a joy and an honor for me to get to know you. Oliver has had a lot of fun with his Swiss cousin this week. She has wonderful stories, and I think we've been able to kind of learn about Corinne in different parts of her life. So I hope that we can keep telling those stories. So as all of us continue to remember Corinne both today and in the seasons to come, may we be inspired by the ways she built community, made everyday moments cause for joyous celebration and adventure, and the way she called forth the best in her students and in all of us. So go forward, good friends, in peace and good health. Thank you for coming today.
So friends, as Lisa and Catherine both said, you have your marching orders. So Lisa, I invite you to start this parade and let the joyful celebrations continue. Thank you, friends. Go in peace.